Welcome to Sober.Coffee, a weekly coffee chat sharing experience, strength, and hope for anyone on the sober road to recovery. You can download Sober.Coffee weekly on all podcast platforms and check us out on Instagram at Sober.Coffee Podcast and on Twitter at Sober.Coffee Pod. To learn more about us and to help support these sessions, visit online at Sober.Coffee. Here are your hosts, two guys on their own path to recovery, Mike and Glenn. Let's join them at the coffee shop.
Good morning, Mr. G.
You know, Mikey,
Yeah,
good morning. Always great morning. We sit down in the coffee shop with you. I got my big, tall cup of coffee this morning. I'm looking forward to seeing what we're going to talk about. But before we do,
Yeah.
do you like my new shirt?
Love it. Sober AF. What does AF mean?
I was just going to ask you that. So I think there's two meanings for AF.
Yeah.
One is
Yeah.
alcohol-free.
Oh, I like that. Okay, sober,
And
alcohol-free.
I'll give you two guesses what the other one stands for.
Absolutely fantastic. Am I gold there or what?
You know what? I think it is. I've kind of resigned, and I haven't heard any from any listeners that they've noticed, but I've kind of been refraining from using the F word.
Well, what the fuck happened?
Somebody told me that I don't wear it well, and fuck them. But no, I think AF can stand as sober as fuck, and that's kind of where
Our pastor listens to this podcast. How you doing?
Oh, sure.
I've had-
Oh my gosh! So
Funny, I've had people on the phone, like people call me and they'll be like throwing the F-bomb. I got them on speaker. I go, my pastor's in the car with me, dude. And they're like, oh, no. But really, our pastor does listen. So
I know,
let's clean it up a little bit, all right?
So it's so funny because I was at an event with you recently, and our pastor was there. And we go to a really cool church, and it's got like, I don't know, 10,000 plus people. I mean, it's big. So we're sitting there, and in the lobby, and our pastor, we call him PT, he comes up to you and he says something about the podcast, and I looked at you and I'm like, that can't be our podcast.
You can't listen to our podcast.
like don't tell him that I'm the Glenn. Don't tell him that's me.
Well, here's the beauty. Just a quick side note is, again, do appreciate, the church we're plugged into, and we do go to church at the same place. But one of the things we're gonna talk a lot on the podcast in the future here, and in the past a little bit about professional help. We're not professionals, and the one thing I love about our church is, our pastor reaffirms all the time that there is professional help out there. Go get it. I mean, don't discount the fact. I was thinking about this on the way over to coffee this morning. If I had to have heart surgery, right? Now, I don't, right, because I eat so healthy, tall coffees, sugar muffins.
Those big muffins.
Yeah. So today I'm not going to need a heart surgeon. But would I shop them on price, or would I try and do it myself? Would I try and go in on my own and fix my own heart, or go to some hack? No, I don't even never ask the price of the heart doctor. I just want my heart fixed, right? Use a professional.
Right, so why don't we do this?
Yeah,
let's throw a curveball.
Let's throw a curveball.
Or also known as an audible. So
Okay.
we were going to sit down in the coffee shop and talk about acceptance,
Right.
And acceptance is really cool and sexy, and we'll cover that sometime, right?
Right.
But what you just brought up, I think, we have connected with, a woman out there, and we look forward to having her on. And, she turned from a party girl into, I'm not drinking tonight. Right. And she's got a great story. We can't wait to have her on.
She's got a great story, great book.
Yeah. She wrote a book, and she's also a therapist, right?
Yeah. Hey, by the way, since you're saying that, let's just throw it out there, and then we'll get back to your topic. But if you want to follow her on Instagram, it's Therapy for Women, is what you're looking for. Amanda White.
Yeah, Amanda White, great stuff. Great, and she's, so. What I thought we'd do is shift gears and just kind of, instead of talking about acceptance, we'll do that later. But let's talk about the value of a therapist in sobriety.
Okay.
So, as we normally do in the coffee shop, we don't script a lot, right?
No.
So we're just going to talk off the cuff here. But go back to what you were saying about, using professionals in AA. I do love the fact that, our church PT, who you referenced, he gets on stage and probably once a quarter, maybe once every 2 or 3 months, he always endorses AA.
Yeah, right.
I mean, he always finds a way to talk about alcoholics, about recovery, about AA and the value of AA. And our church has this theme, called "Come as You Are." Mm-hmm. and I'm not looking to bash the church I grew up in, but their theme was judge the next people that walk in the door, and it was a bunch of rules and everybody judged. I mean, and that's not what spirituality is about. It's about having a relationship, not the rules, so, going back to, PT but there's value in professionals.
Absolutely.
So, I do know that the AA book in several places, the first 164 pages, talks about the value of getting professional help. Just like you said.
Absolutely.
Right? Love my sponsor. My sponsor's a great dude. I'm having shoulder problems. I go to my sponsor. I say, dude, I'm having shoulder problems. I'm going to a doctor. I'm getting an MRI. I might need some help with some pain pills. If I get surgery, I'm not doing that without pain medicine. I'm going to need some help, right? But my sponsor's not going to do the surgery.
No, right.
You know? So there is value in getting professional help. And we've talked about a little bit of this before, but we actually had somebody reach out this week on our Instagram, talking about, getting professional help, right? Taking meds, right, when they're in recovery, if they're prescribed by their doctor. Now, I agree with that, but I think I put up some guardrails, right? For example, I was working with a guy. I wasn't his sponsor. I knew him too well, in the program, but we talked all the time. And I was on the phone with him, and he sounded messed up. He just didn't sound himself. And I'm like, dude, what's going on? I said, you don't sound like yourself. I said, I'm not trying to call you out. I'm trying to help you. So what's going on? He goes, well, I'm on this new medicine. I'm like, all right, what's the medicine? So he goes, I forget the name of it. I'm like, stop. You don't forget the name of it. Pull out the bottle. And he goes, all right. He goes, I'm taking Xanax. I'm like, dude, what are you doing? Right? He goes, well, the doctor gave it to me. I'm like, dude, you're an alcoholic and you're a Xanax addict. You were in a hospital for 2 weeks because you couldn't function because you were on so much Xanax. Why would you be taking Xanax? He said, well, the doctor gave it to me. And so I said, okay. And it became really clear for me at this point, kind of the right approach for me. Again, we have disclosure on our show and everything else. But for me, so I said to him, I said, all right, did you tell your doctor that you're an alcoholic, that you've been in treatment 17 times, and that you're a Xanax addict? He said, well, no, if I had told him that, he wouldn't give me Xanax.
Yeah, right.
So I'm like, okay, so that right there, you got to be honest, right?
So much, right.
And I mean, that's what I used to do. I used to go to the doctors, tell them what they want to hear. I knew what to say, and I manipulated them. I put a nice suit and tie on.
Do you think you fooled them when you went to the doctor and said I'm a social drinker, and you're sitting there shaking?
I think half the doctors didn't care.
Yeah,
and I hate to say that,
no,
but
I
just
had the
really
same experience, Glenn.
I really think they're pill throwers.
Yeah, I had the same experience, and post recovery, or at least post my day of awakening. I changed doctors because the doctor I went to, he had to see that my train was crashing, and he did nothing to help support me. Now, mind you, I'm not blaming him. I did nothing to help support myself, I only lied to him. It goes back to your honesty thing.
We're not talking about blame. We're talking about just recognizing the facts of the situation, and so I told him. I said, well, did you tell your sponsor? He said, well, yeah, I told my sponsor that I was on new medicine from the doctor. I said, did you tell your sponsor what the medicine was?
Right.
He goes, well, no, he didn't ask.
Right.
And I'm like, dude, what? And so for me, it became clear. So, as I look at this shoulder surgery, which I'm dreading because I had my left one done 12 years ago. It was one of the toughest things I went through in my life. But I'm going to do it differently this time, right? So my doctors, all my doctor medical team is going to know I'm an alcoholic, right? My sponsor is going to know exactly what's going on. I may bring him into the conversation if I need to. We have a great relationship at this point, almost 7 years sobriety. So, I mean, I've already teed him up, right? And then my wife is going to manage my pills. So, I mean, with that program, just because I'm an alcoholic doesn't mean I have to go through shoulder surgery, cut my shoulder open, and go through that pain.
Right. So
I should be able to get through it comfortably.
Right. So on topic, so that's how you're going to handle your physical operation and recovery.
Are you trying to bring me back on topic?
I want to get back on topic here.
And our topic's what?
So now you got your mental health and recovery. So how does a therapist fit into how does a professional fit into that there? Because are you telling your sponsor you're going to the therapist? Are you telling your wife you're going to the therapist? What are you telling your therapist, and how important is a therapist in recovery?
All right, so
I have a strong opinion. I love it. So.
I have a funny story to tell you. Again, there was a point in my life nobody could tell me anything. I knew it all. I was the smartest guy in the room. I didn't want to hear what anybody had to say. But there was a guy in 2000. So 2000, I was still living in the big house and a great wife, great kids, and great everything. But this guy could read my label on my jar, and he knew I was in trouble. Right? I was still trying to hold it together. And I remember being at a party, and I was half lit, right? And he pulls me aside. And it was at his house. He pulls me aside, pulls me into his office. And he said, "Glenn, I want to tell you something about me." I said, "Yeah, what's up, man?" His name was Chip. I said, "What's up, Chip?" He goes, "I want to tell you about this coach that I'm going to." And I said, "What are you learning?"
Yeah.
He goes, "Well, he's a therapist." He said, "But I call him my coach." He goes, "I'm really learning how to kind of adjust and how to live life and learn how to live a new way of life." He says, "He's really helping me." I'm like, "Dude, that's great. I'm happy for you." He goes, "I think he'd be really good for you." And I was like,
you were taken back a little bit.
I was like,
yeah.
Who in the world do you think you are telling me I need a coach?
Sure.
I'm the best guy here.
Right.
And I wish, looking back, man, I wish I had listened, but I mean, I there's no way. But that was a good sign, right?
Yeah.
So, AA welcomes outside help. Now, I can sit here and say, I'm looking forward to hearing your story too. My therapist, my coach, has been a critical key to my sobriety and to my success in living successfully in sobriety.
Yep, and I've had the exact similar experience. The number of therapists I went to before I got sober was in double digits, and
wow,
out of all of them, none of them worked. It was a terrible experience. It was a waste of money. It was a waste of my time, but I was wasting the opportunity because I wasn't honest. I got sober, and it was strongly encouraged me to go see a therapist. And I did. And I walked in, and there was a young lady there, younger than my youngest daughter. And I thought, where is she? How is this gonna work? How's this whole thing gonna work, right? And I said to her at our first session, I said, here's the thing. I've had bad experience with therapists. I don't want to talk about my feelings. I will tell you, here's my role. I'll be 100% honest with you. Your role is to uncover anything and deal with anything and help me move through anything so I won't go back to drink. That was our relationship. She kept an eye on the things that she felt were inside of me that I needed to process properly so that I wouldn't go back to drink. And it's been a phenomenal relationship.
Do you still go?
Yep.
So I don't go. I've gone periodically. So early in my sobriety, I went every week for I don't know how long, for a while.
I'm glad you did, because I think that's the most important time.
Yeah.
I'm not telling you I get the same out of a session today that I did when I was 3 months sober. At 3 months sober, she was a lifeline to me, because I was trying to navigate new waters.
Yeah, first thing in therapy that I realized is that is the fastest hour.
Oh, yeah, right.
In history.
Right.
I mean, when you're sitting there on the couch,
sure.
And I've gone to the same dude, great guy, fastest hour in history.
Mm-hmm.
And then the hardest thing to do was, again, I like to do instant fixes, right?
Mm-hmm.
So I actually said this to the guy.
Mm-hmm.
I said, hey, look, instead of 1 hour sessions, which are really 50 minutes, like I feel ripped off. Right?
Sure, right.
They're really 50-minute sessions. I said, hey, instead of like just a 1 hour session, let's schedule me for like 4 hours on a Saturday. Because I was just getting on a roll at the 50-minute mark, and then it's like, okay,
gotta go, right?
So he had the audacity to say no.
Oh, so you fired him.
No, I actually no.
Did
I was in my surrender zone.
All right.
So I'm like, okay. He goes, Glenn, look. He goes, you got to have time to process what we
Right.
talk about.
Right.
You know, he said, this isn't a power session because you're not going to get anything out of it.
That's right.
Right. And then I want him to do it on Zoom. This is years ago before Zoom. He goes, no.
Right.
You got to get here in front of me.
Right.
You know, you got to make the commitment. You got to. So I surrendered and I listened to him.
Yeah. And that's the thing is find a therapist. If the first one doesn't work out, my only recommendation is try another one. Keep trying, because if you find one that will engage with you and really buy into your recovery, and they give you some applicable projects to do when you leave. I love homework. I always ask her at the end, what's my homework? And she'd have me go watch a Bree Brown TED Talk, or read a book, or try some meditations off of you. She would try different things, but we both had to be all in the relationship for that 50 minutes. There is, just real quickly, I'm going to drop in the resource room. It's a link to, do you remember the old Bob Newhart show?
No.
Right. So anyway, long story short.
I'm not that old.
I know. Hey, stop yourself now. Anyway, so there's a therapist, and the lady comes in, and he simply explains to her that his sessions only take 5 minutes, and it's $5 for the 5 minutes. And if he don't use the whole 5 minutes, then he doesn't make change. So it's $5, right? Mm-hmm. And she goes, really? It's that simple? He goes, yep. He goes, what's your problem? And she says, I'm afraid I'm going to be buried in a box alive. And he goes, oh, have you ever been buried in a box alive? No. Why are you afraid of being buried in a box? I don't know. I just am. He goes, okay, I'm going to give you your answer right now, and then we'll be done with our session. She goes, great. Should I write this down? And she gets a pen and a little notepad, and he says, I don't think you need to, but okay, if you want to write it down anyway. And she says, okay, I'm ready. And he says, stop it. Just stop it. Right? Look, I'm going to say.
Sometimes that's what it takes.
But it's just honesty.
Yep.
It's like, here's where I'm at. Here's what I need to do. And sometimes you just need to stop it. But what you need to start is I'm a big advocate of getting that professional help.
Yeah, so here's some keys that I learned from my dude, coach.
Okay.
One is he helped me understand why I drank. You know, he didn't get there, but at least I got on the dartboard. You know,
That's great.
Just started learning about me and my personality and what was good and what was going wrong and what I was trying to escape from.
Isn't that funny? Do you think it's important to know why it is we drink? It's funny. I thought it was really important early on. Now I think it's less important.
I'm right there with you.
Okay, good.
I'm right there with you, and you know, I always look at cause and effect, right? So what caused this effect?
Yeah, that's right.
You know?
Sure.
And
Simple logic.
And I think, hey, dude, I had 10 PhDs sitting in front of me at this major medical place in Chicago, and they're like, we're going to figure out why you drink, and we're going to keep you from drinking.
And they wanted to write a book on you.
Screw them, man.
Yeah,
I mean,
right.
I drank all the way through that shit.
Yeah, right,
You know, and I would go to that thing half hungover. I'm like, you guys are fools, you know? And so I'm with you. I got to the point, I don't really care.
Right.
I'm just not drinking today. I'm
That's
going
right.
to focus on today. And that freed me up a lot.
Okay, so
second
that's the
thing
one thing,
is,
yeah.
second thing is, the guy really helped me love on myself and forgive myself. And I can remember sitting on his couch several sessions in tears and just accepting who I am and realize that, hey, man, I've done some real shitty things, but that's not who I am.
Right.
You know?
And, dude, we're going to unpack that whole thing in the acceptance session.
Well, that's awesome.
Yeah, let's unpack that because that is big. Self-acceptance, big.
That's awesome. And then lastly is he helped me with tools to live life that my sponsor or the AA program couldn't help me with.
That's right.
For example, the dynamics of being a stepdad and having stepchildren. Now, there's a guy in our program, call him Big Bill, love the dude. He had a stepkid probably 10 years older than mine. So for years, I would listen to his stories in the room, and now I'm living the same stories. So I got so much value of learning what he did on the path with his stepson. And I'm telling you, I hear his voice throughout the week when I'm dealing with my stepkids. But my therapist really helped me understand the dynamics of being a stepdad and having stepchildren. And he gave me some specific tools to help navigate that have helped me immensely.
Right. And the net result is, again, you didn't drink today.
I didn't drink today, and I'm a valuable asset. I'm a contributor to my stepkids' lives, and I'm a positive influence. And am I perfect? No,
why?
I'm not
Because
perfect.
you took action. You took action to make sure that you were on the right course. Not only did you listen to somebody in the rooms of Alcoholics Anonymous, somebody who's paid, 1/10 of a buck that you put in the kitty, and then you listen to your $185 an hour therapist. Both those tools helped you in your path to recovery and keeping you sober. I think it's, I'd love to wrap up where we started. And
Well, I'm not ready to wrap up yet.
okay, well, nobody says we have to stick to 18 minutes.
But if you
Your therapist.
man, we're over 18 minutes already. All right, so I have two stories for you.
Yeah.
One is I and you mentioned a little bit, but I love goal-oriented therapy, right? Some people call it cognitive behavioral therapy, CBT. But an example of that is, I was working with my therapist, and I got out of a terrible relationship, and so we sat there and outlined goals, right? He goes, "Okay, this week you got to do this. You got to, block her phone number. You got to eliminate your connections on social media. You can't keep watching her and what's going on, and you got to move on." I'm like, okay, sounds good. So the next week he goes, "Let me see your phone." I'm like, "What do you want to see my phone for?" He goes, "Let me see your phone." So I give him my phone. He goes, "What's her phone number still doing in here? I thought you're supposed to block it." I'm like, "Wow, I just haven't." He said, No, stop. He said, "We agreed that you were going to remove her phone number and block it. Why is it still in here?" He says, "Something's up with that." And he was right. But it's that level of CBT that it's not all just theoretical, philosophical, talking about stuff. And it's action-oriented goals and action items that improved my life.
Absolutely.
Lastly is, and then you can wrap it up, right?
All right.
You can land that plane. That church that we go to, this is so cool. And I mean, I love our church. I'm not doing a commercial for it because we haven't even mentioned it, but their motto is "Come as you are." And I really thought that meant come in flip-flops, and it does. But it really means just come as you are as a person, right? Come as you are spiritually. If you hate God, who cares? Come as you are. If you're, seeking, if you're exploring, if you're trying to mock, so what? Just come, right? They just stood up in front of, church, and they're starting a new program. I think their sermon series now is Improve Your Life, right? And they're offering free therapy sessions, one free therapy session to get people started, right? Because a lot of people say, "Well, I don't want to spend the money,"
Right.
Even though insurance covers it mostly, people say, "Well, I just don't want to spend the money." They want to eliminate that excuse. So they have a program where for your first therapy session, they will pay for it. That is so amazing. The last number I heard, 285 people took advantage of that.
Right.
So, I mean, therapy is a great thing. Inside of sobriety, outside of sobriety, it has been so monumental for me. I love hearing your story about how equally impacting it was and is for you. And, sponsors are great things, man, but there are times that you need something above, out and beyond a sponsor.
Well, if our, and again, I'll just wrap it with this. If our pastor understands that his messaging is not going to get you from where you are today to where you need to be from a mental health standpoint on your own, if you need it, if it's strong enough for him to say, it's strong enough for me to advocate as well. If you need it, go get it. And maybe you don't go to a church that's going to pay for your first session. Pay for your first one. I highly
Best money I spent.
Best money I spent. Please get the help you need. Love you guys.
Love you. Looking forward to having Amanda on. Talk about the value. Deeper dive. And so,
Sounds
love
great,
you, man.
man. Thanks.
Always love the coffee shop with you.
Thanks for joining us for today's coffee chat. To contact the show, email us at podcast@Sober.Coffee. If you need immediate help, the AA hotline is 800-839-1686. The National Suicide Prevention Hotline is 800-273-8255. Remember, Mike and Glenn are sharing their own journey on the path to recovery. Any suggestions, medical or otherwise, are their own experiences and should not be viewed as professional advice. See you next week, and remember, there is a solution.